Tonight, I want to take you to a mountain. Not a famous peak that people climb to conquer, a different kind of mountain, one that people climb in order to be still. High in the forests of western Japan, ringed by 8 quiet summits like the petals of a single flower, there is a small world that has kept the same rhythm for more than 1,000 years. And at the heart of it, behind 2 kilometers of towering cedars, there is a man who, by the faith of those who walk to him, has never died. Every single morning, before the sun reaches the valley, monks carry him a warm meal. They have done this for 12 centuries, without missing a day. Tonight, I want to walk you up to him, slowly, gently, so that you can feel the silence of that place settle over you like a blanket. It is a long, soft path, and I will be with you the whole way. Thank you for being here tonight, in this quiet hour. If you would like to keep drifting off to Japan, you may wish to subscribe and join us each night. And if something in tonight's story stays with you, I would love to read about it in the comments. And now, let us begin. Let us start at the foot of the mountain, where the air begins to change. For most of the year, the lowlands of this part of Japan are warm and bright. Rice fields stretch flat toward the sea, and the days move at the easy pace of farming country. But if you turn away from the coast and begin to climb, something happens to the world around you. The road folds back on itself, again and again, threading up through a wall of green. The temperature drops by a few gentle degrees. The sounds of the valley, the engines, the voices, the ordinary daytime hum of human business grow faint and then disappear altogether. In their place comes a deeper sound, the sound that old forests make, the long, slow breathing of cedar and cypress, the occasional drip of water from a high branch, the soft settling of mist. This is the approach to a place that, for over 1,000 years, the people of this country have simply called the mountain. Its name, in the old language, means the high plain of wild grasses, a flat basin lifted high into the sky, cradled on every side by peaks. To reach it, you must pass through that ring of mountains, as though crossing the rim of a great bowl. And once you're inside, the world feels different, enclosed, held, quiet in a way that is hard to describe until you have stood there yourself. I want you to imagine arriving here as the evening comes on. The light is thinning between the trees. A thin haze drifts low across the road, and ahead of you, the forest opens just enough to reveal that you are not alone up here, that within this hidden basin, lifted some 850 meters above the sea, there is a whole small town of temples, their dark wooden halls and gentle rooftops settling into the dusk. Smoke rises softly from a kitchen somewhere. A bell sounds, once, and the sound seems to travel a very long way before it fades. There is a particular feeling that comes over people when they first arrive in this high basin, and I would like to describe it to you because it is the feeling I hope will come over you tonight. It is the feeling of having crossed a threshold, of having stepped out of one kind of time and into another. Down in the valley, time runs the way it runs everywhere in the modern world, quickly, restlessly, always pulling you toward the next thing, and the next, and the next. But up here, time runs the way the mountain runs it, slowly, patiently, in the measure of seasons and centuries, rather than minutes and hours. The moment you pass through the ring of peaks, you can feel your own inner clock begin, almost against your will, to slow down to match it. And that slowing is the beginning of rest. Let your own inner clock begin that slowing now, as you lie there in the dark. There is no journey you must hurry through tonight. We have the whole, long, quiet walk ahead of us, and all the time in the world to take it. Picture the temple town as it settles into the evening around you. The streets here are narrow and old, lined with the long wooden walls of the temple lodgings, where for centuries travelers and pilgrims have been welcomed into rest. As the light fades, warm lamps come on, one by one, behind paper screens, casting a soft amber glow out onto the road. The smell of wood smoke and of evening cooking drifts gently on the cool air. Somewhere a monk is sweeping a stone path with slow, even strokes of a worn broom, the soft sound of it carrying clearly in the stillness. There are people here. There has been a community living on this mountain for over 1,000 years, and yet even with its temples and its lodgings and its quiet daily life, the place never feels crowded or busy. It feels instead like a town that has agreed, all together, long ago, to be calm, to move gently, to keep its voice low, out of respect for the great silence that surrounds it on every side. And surround it the silence does, for just beyond the edges of the little town, in every direction, the deep forest rises again toward the peaks, dark and vast and ancient, holding the whole small settlement in its quiet embrace. And somewhere in that town, even now, in the dark before the dawn, a small light is moving. A warm meal has been prepared, and it is being carried quietly and carefully along a path beneath the cedars, toward the heart of the mountain, exactly as it has been carried every single morning for 1,200 years. Hold that small moving light in your mind for now. We will follow it, in time, all the way to its destination. But to understand where it is going and why, we have to begin much further back, with the man who first chose this mountain more than 1,200 years ago. How did such a place come to be here, in the middle of the mountains, so far from everything? To answer that, I need to tell you about the man who chose this spot. His name, the name the whole country would come to know him by, was Kūkai. Though over the centuries he would gather a softer, more affectionate title, one I will come to later. He lived a very long time ago, more than 1,200 years in the past, in an age when this country was young and its new capital was still finding its feet. And by any measure that has come down to us, he was a remarkable person. He was born far to the south of here, on the smallest of Japan's 4 main islands, into a family of some standing. He was, by every account, a brilliant child, quick, curious, hungry for knowledge in a way that set him apart from those around him. As a young man, he traveled to the capital to study, and there he learned the great classical texts, the histories and the philosophies that an educated person of his time was expected to master. By all accounts, he excelled at them. He had a gift, in particular, for language and for writing, a gift that would serve him in surprising ways later in his life. He could have followed that path to a comfortable career, a respectable position, a quiet and ordinary success. But something in him would not settle for it. There was a restlessness in the young Kūkai, a sense that the answers he was being handed were not the answers to the questions he most wanted to ask. The classical learning of his day was elegant and orderly, but it spoke to the management of society, to ethics and administration, and the proper conduct of life. It did not reach the deeper thing he was reaching for, the question of what all of this is, underneath. The question of what a person truly is, and what the world truly is. and whether there is some greater truth holding it all together. Those were the questions that kept him awake, and the more he studied, the more clearly he saw that the path laid out for him would never answer them. And so, while still a young man, he turned away from the easy road. He went into the mountains. He sought out the lonely, difficult places, the caves, the high ridges, the forests where holy men of that era went to discipline themselves and to listen for something larger than their own thoughts. He fasted, he chanted, he sat in the dark and the cold for long stretches of time. He was searching, though even he may not yet have known the precise shape of what he was searching for. There is a story from these early wandering years of Kūkai practicing on a remote cape at the very edge of the land, chanting beside the sea, day after day, until, so the tradition holds, a moment of profound clarity came to him as the morning star appeared over the ocean at dawn. Whatever the truth of that moment, it captures something real about him. A young man willing to go to the very edge of the world and the very edge of his own endurance, in pursuit of an understanding he could not yet name. Picture him there, if you will, before we move on. A young man alone on a high cape at the edge of the sea, in the grey hour before dawn. The waves moving far below in the dark, the cold air, the endless sound of the water, and the young Kūkai sitting quite still, his voice low and steady in the chant, waiting for what he could not have said, only knowing that he had to wait and to listen and to keep faith that something would answer. And then slowly, the sky beginning to pale in the east, and a single bright star rising over the dark line of the sea. It is a lonely image, and yet there is no despair in it. There is only a deep, patient seeking, the seeking of someone who has staked everything on the belief that the truth is real and findable, and worth any hardship to reach. I find that part of his story very moving, and I think you might too. Because that hunger, the feeling that there is more to understand than what we are usually told, the willingness to walk away from comfort in order to find it, that is a very human thing. Most of us have felt some version of it, at least once. The quiet certainty, in the middle of an ordinary life, that the life laid out for us is not quite the whole of life. Kūkai felt it, and he did not push it away or talk himself out of it. He followed it, all the way into the mountains and then beyond. Because then, he did something even bolder. He decided to cross the sea. In those days, the great center of learning, the source of the deepest knowledge in the known world, lay across the water on the continent, in the vast and glittering empire to the west. Japan sent occasional missions there, long, perilous voyages by wooden ship across dangerous waters to bring back wisdom, writing, art, and the most advanced teachings of the age. To be chosen for such a mission was a rare honor, usually reserved for established figures, accomplished officials, and senior monks. And Kūkai, still relatively young and not yet famous, managed, through a combination of his evident brilliance and what must have been considerable determination, to secure a place among them. The crossing was terrible. The little fleet of ships set out, and almost at once was scattered by storms. Some of the vessels were lost entirely, swallowed by the sea, their passengers never heard from again. The ship Kūkai sailed on was blown far off its intended course and driven for many weeks across open water, until at last it washed up on a distant stretch of foreign coast, far from where it was supposed to land. And there, a new difficulty arose. The local officials, seeing this battered ship and its weary, travel-worn passengers, did not believe they were who they claimed to be. They suspected them of being pirates, or smugglers, or spies. The mission was in danger of being turned away before it had even begun. Imagine the weariness of those travelers, to have survived weeks of storm at sea, to have watched other ships go down, to have come at last to land half-starved and exhausted, only to be met not with welcome but with suspicion. It would have broken the spirit of many. But it was here, in that low moment, that Kūkai's particular gift revealed itself. It was here that Kūkai's gift for language saved them. He composed, on behalf of the stranded mission, a letter to the regional governor, a letter so beautifully and persuasively written, so masterful in its command of the continental language and its classical style, that the official who received it was moved and impressed. Surely, the reasoning went, men who could write like this were no common criminals. The mission was believed. They were granted permission to continue. And so, on the strength of a single extraordinary piece of writing, Kūkai and his companions were allowed at last to travel inland, toward the great capital of that empire. I want you to picture him there, a young man from a small country at the eastern edge of the world, far from home, having survived a voyage that killed others, walking at last through the gates of the largest and most cosmopolitan city on the entire earth. It was a place of almost unimaginable scale and dazzling variety. Broad avenues so wide that a crowd could cross them and still leave room, towering gates, markets piled high with goods from across the whole of the known world, merchants and monks and scholars and travelers from a dozen distant lands mingled in its streets. Music and languages he had never heard filled the air. There were silks and spices, jewels and strange fruits, books and instruments and works of art gathered from every corner of the continent and beyond. For someone with Kūkai's hunger to learn, it must have felt like arriving finally at the very center of everything, as though all the roads of the world led here to this one shining city, and he had walked every one of them to stand in this place. But Kūkai had not crossed the sea for silks or spices, or even, in the end, for the famous sights of the great capital. He had come for something he could not yet name, and he set about searching for it with the same quiet determination that had carried him into the mountains as a boy. He studied. He sought out teachers. He learned more of the continental language and read deeply, and asked his patient, searching questions. He was looking, though he may not have known it precisely, for someone who could answer the deepest of those questions, the ones the ordinary scholars and the ordinary teachers could not reach. And it was there, in that great city, that he found what he had crossed the sea to find, though he had not known its name when he set out. He found a teacher. The teacher was an aged master, a man of immense learning and spiritual depth, who held within him a stream of knowledge that had been passed, carefully and deliberately, from mind to mind across many generations. It was a body of teaching so subtle and so demanding that it could not be learned from books alone, nor mastered by study and effort in the ordinary way. It had to be given directly from one person to another, like a flame passed from one candle to the next. This was a way of understanding the world that worked through ritual and image, through sacred sound and sacred gesture, and deep meditation. A path that held at its very center a radiant and consoling idea. The idea that the truth of the universe is not somewhere far away and unreachable, locked beyond the sky, but is present, here and now, within all things and within ourselves. The old master was by then near the end of his life. He had been waiting, the tradition tells us, for the right person to receive the whole of his teaching, a vessel worthy of the complete transmission, someone capable of carrying it onward, when he was gone. He had many students, but none, it seems, in whom he saw the full measure of what was needed. And then this young foreigner arrived at his gate, travel-worn and far from home, and the old master looked at him and recognized at once the one he had been waiting for. He took Kūkai as his chief disciple, and over a short and intense period, with the urgency of a man who knows his time is short, he poured everything he knew into him, the full transmission, the complete inheritance, the rituals, the teachings, the inner meaning of it all. As one old description of the moment puts it, it was as though water were being poured from one vessel into another, until nothing was left in the first, and nothing was missing from the second. Whatever the old master had spent his life gathering, he gave entire to the young man from across the sea. Think for a moment of what that exchange must have been. An old man at the very end of his days, holding within him the work of a whole lifetime, and longer, for what he held had itself been passed to him from his own teacher, and to that teacher from another, back and back through the generations. All of it gathered in this one aged mind, and all of it about to be lost forever unless it could be passed on, just once more, to someone able to receive it whole. And then, at the last possible moment, the right person arriving, not from among his own people, not even from his own land, but a stranger from a distant island country at the far edge of the world, who had crossed a deadly sea and survived, and who had walked all this way carrying exactly the hunger and exactly the gifts that the moment required. The old master must have felt, I think, an enormous relief and an enormous joy. The thread would not be broken after all. The flame would pass to the next candle, and the young man receiving it must have felt the great weight and the great wonder of it, to be handed all at once the entire inheritance of a tradition and the charge of carrying it home across the sea. And then, his great work complete, the old master gave Kūkai his final instruction. Take this teaching back to your own country, across the water, and let it spread there. Do not let it stay confined to this one city, this one land. Carry it home and build it a home of its own in the place where it belongs. The old master died not long after, his purpose, at the very end of his life, fulfilled. And Kūkai, now carrying within him the whole of this precious knowledge, gathered the texts and the sacred objects he had been given, and turned again toward the ocean, toward home, toward the long voyage back across the dangerous sea to the country that had sent him. There is a story about that homeward journey, one of the gentle legends that have gathered around Kūkai over the centuries, the way moss gathers on old stone. I should be honest with you and say, as I always try to be, that this is a tale told by the faithful, rather than a thing the historians can confirm. There are differing accounts, and we cannot know exactly what happened. But it is a beautiful tale, and it belongs to tonight's story. So let me tell it to you softly, the way it has been told for a very long time. Before he left the continent, the legend says, Kūkai stood upon the shore and faced out across the sea, toward the distant, invisible shape of Japan. In his hand he held a ritual implement, a small object cast in bronze, a kind of sacred tool used in his practice, with 3 prongs gathered at each end. And he made a vow. He drew back his arm, and he cast the object out over the waves, sending it flying far across the water toward his homeland. And as it flew, he prayed, "Wherever this comes to rest, let that be the place where I build the home of this teaching. Let the ground itself be chosen for me. Let me not decide it. Let the vow decide it." The object flew out over the sea, and arced through the air, and vanished from sight. He did not watch where it fell. He could not. It was already gone, out over the water, beyond the reach of his eyes. He simply let it go, and he trusted the going. Hold that image for a moment as you lie there in the quiet. That small bronze thing arcing out over the dark water, carrying a vow with it, disappearing into the distance toward a country it could not possibly reach by any ordinary means. There is something in it, I think, that speaks to a feeling many of us know. The act of sending our deepest hope out ahead of us, into a future we cannot see, and trusting without proof, without certainty, that it will find its place and that the way will somehow open. Kūkai did not know where the object would land. He could not know. He simply made his vow and let it go, and trusted the going. And that trust, in the end, would shape the rest of his life, and would raise a sacred mountain that still stands, and still keeps its silence, 1,200 years later. We will come back to where it landed, but first, let us follow Kūkai home, and let us follow the years as they passed. Because the mountain we are climbing tonight was not built in a day, and the man who built it had to wait a long time for it. When Kūkai returned to Japan, he did not arrive to an immediate welcome. He had cut his long study mission short, returning far sooner than the rules of such voyages allowed. The missions were meant to last many years, and for a time, the authorities in the capital did not quite know what to do with him. He was not permitted at first to enter the capital itself. He was kept at a distance, asked to wait. And so he waited, settling for a time in quieter places, ordering the great mass of knowledge he had brought back, deepening his own practice, patient. And in that waiting, I think, we can see the very thing that would later shape everything he made. The patience of a man who had already learned, in the mountains and on the storm-tossed sea, that the most important things cannot be rushed. He did not force his way forward. He did not grasp at recognition, or push to be let in. He trusted that the time would come, and he prepared himself quietly for it. And he waited for the world to be ready. I think there is something in that worth holding on to, as you rest tonight. We live in a world that tells us, constantly, to hurry, to push, to strive, to make things happen now. And yet so much of what is best in a life comes not from the pushing, but from the patient waiting, from doing the quiet inner work, and trusting that the right moment will arrive in its own time. Kūkai had crossed the sea and received the greatest teaching of the age, and now he was being asked, simply, to wait. And he waited, without bitterness, and used the time well. The mountain he would one day build was, in a sense, already being built, in those patient years of waiting, in the steadiness of the man who was learning how to let things ripen. In time, the country gained a new emperor, a cultured and thoughtful man, deeply devoted to learning, to fine writing, and to art. This emperor was himself a master of the brush, celebrated across the land for the beauty of his calligraphy. And he had a discerning eye for true talent wherever he found it. And he came to recognize what Kūkai was. Not a troublesome irregularity to be managed and kept at arm's length, but one of the most extraordinary minds the country had ever produced. The two men shared a deep love of beautiful writing and of profound ideas. And out of that shared love, a genuine friendship slowly grew. Emperor and monk, drawn together across the great distance of their stations by a true meeting of minds, they exchanged writings. The emperor sought Kūkai's brush and his thoughts and his company. And over the years, the emperor drew Kūkai closer and closer to the center of things, entrusted him with greater responsibilities, sought his counsel, and came, in time, to rely upon him deeply. And so Kūkai's standing rose, steadily, like the sun climbing a long slope. He became a figure of great respect and influence. He was given charge of important temples. His name became known throughout the capital and beyond. And people came to him seeking teaching and blessing and counsel. He could have remained there indefinitely, honored and comfortable, at the very heart of the country's spiritual and cultural life, with everything a man of his gifts might be thought to want. But you will remember what was in him, that old restlessness, that hunger for the quiet, difficult, holy places that had first driven him into the mountains as a young man. The years in the capital, for all their honor and their friendship, were not the fulfillment of the vow he had carried back across the sea. He had promised his dying master that he would build a home for the teaching. And a home, Kūkai believed, did not belong in the noise and dust and politics of the city. It belonged somewhere apart, somewhere high and still, and far from the ordinary traffic of human business. A place where seekers could withdraw, as he himself had once withdrawn, and turn their full and undivided attention toward the deepest questions, away from every distraction of the world. And there was, I think, something more in it than that. Kūkai understood, perhaps better than anyone of his age, that the kind of inner work he wished to nurture needs a particular kind of ground to grow in. It needs silence. It needs distance from the constant pull of the world's demands. It needs the steadying presence of great nature, of mountains and forests and clear running water and open sky, to quiet the restless mind and turn it toward depth. He had felt all of that himself as a young man in the wild places. He knew its power, and he wished to give it as a lasting gift to all who would come after him. A place set apart, high and pure and still, where the work of the Spirit could be done in peace, generation after generation, for as long as the mountains stood. He remembered the mountains, and he began, in his mind, and then in earnest, to search for the right one. This is where the tale of the flying object returns, and where legend and history begin to flow together like two streams meeting in a valley. According to the tradition, as Kūkai searched the mountains of this region, he met a hunter upon a lonely path, a tall and striking figure, accompanied by two dogs, one white and one black. The hunter, who in the story is no ordinary man, but a guardian spirit of these mountains, spoke to Kūkai of a hidden basin high above, a flat plain ringed all around by peaks, secret and remote and still, and he sent the two dogs ahead to lead the way. Kūkai followed them up and up, deeper into the forest and higher into the heights, until at last the trees opened before him. And there, in that high and secret place, exactly as the vow had promised, he found the sacred object he had thrown from the distant shore, caught and waiting in the branches of a pine. The ground had chosen itself. The vow had been kept. The thing he had cast across the sea had come to rest here, in this hidden plateau among the peaks, and had waited for him to arrive. And so it was here, in this hidden mountain basin, that Kūkai resolved to build. He sought and received the formal permission of the emperor, his friend, to take this remote high place as his own, as a training ground set apart from the world. The grant was made in a year that the records can tell us with confidence. A year very early in the 9th century, more than 1200 years ago. And with that permission, the long work began. The work of carrying timber and stone up the steep mountain paths. The work of clearing just enough of the ancient forest to make room for halls and pagodas, while leaving the great trees all around. The work, slow and faithful and patient, of turning a wild plateau into a place of stillness, a home at last, for the teaching he had carried so very far, across the sea and across the years. It would not be finished quickly. A place like this is never truly finished. It grows and is added to and is cared for, generation after generation, by all who love it. Kūkai himself would not live to see the whole of his vision complete. Much of the great work would fall to the disciples who came after him, and to their disciples in turn, in a long, unbroken line of devoted hands. But the beginning was made. The ground was chosen and blessed. The first timbers were raised against the sky, and the long, patient life of the mountain had begun, a life that has continued, without breaking, from that distant 9th century year, all the way down to this very night, as you lie here listening. That is where I will pause tonight's first part, with the mountain chosen, the permission granted, and the first quiet work beginning beneath the cedars. We have come a long way already, you and I, from a restless boy in the south of the country, across a storm-racked and deadly sea, into the greatest city of the age and home again, all the way back to this high and hidden ground among the peaks. Rest here a while. Let your breathing slow to the pace of the mountain, the pace of seasons and centuries, not minutes and hours. In the next part, we will see what Kūkai built upon this plateau, and we will begin to walk together the long and beautiful path toward the man who, the faithful say, is waiting there still. He stood upon the high plateau, and he began to build a map of the entire universe out of wood and stone. I want to start the second part of our journey right here, at the very center of everything Kūkai made. Because to understand the mountain, you have to understand what he was trying to do when he raised his first great halls upon it. He was not simply building temples. He was building in the physical world a model of the cosmos as he had come to understand it. Every hall, every pagoda, every statue and painting was to be placed with deep intention, so that to walk among them was not merely to visit a holy place, but to walk through the very structure of reality itself. He was making, you might say, a diagram of the universe that a person could step inside and stand within. Picture the plateau as it was when he began, a high, wild basin ringed by peaks, thick with ancient forest, silent but for the wind and the birds and the running of mountain streams. And picture Kūkai standing there, in the midst of all that wildness, seeing in his mind what was not yet there. The great tower rising at the center, the halls arranged around it, the whole sacred design laid out across the plateau like a vast mandala drawn upon the earth. It must have taken an extraordinary kind of vision to stand in an empty mountain basin and see already the shape of something that would outlast him by more than 1,000 years. But Kūkai had always been a man who could see what was not yet there, and then patiently bring it into being, across a sea, across long years of waiting, across the slow hard work of building in a high and difficult place. And so, stroke by stroke, timber by timber, the vision in his mind began to take shape upon the ground. The heart of this great design was a tall pagoda, a soaring tower rising at the center of the plateau, and within it, at the very center, Kūkai placed the figure of the great cosmic Buddha, the radiant being who, in his teaching, is not a distant god enthroned far away, but the living truth of the entire universe, the light that shines within all things and as all things. Around this central figure, the other Buddhas were arranged, and the great pillars of the tower were painted with sacred images, so that the inside of the tower became a single, unified picture of the whole of existence, gathered together into one room. To step inside was to step into the center of the cosmos. To stand there, surrounded on every side by that great ordered design, was to stand, in a sense, inside the very mind of the universe. It was a daring and a beautiful idea to take the whole vast structure of reality, which no eye can ever see all at once, and to render it, patiently, in wood and gold and color, at a scale a person could walk into and stand within. Where others might build a temple as a place to pray toward something far away, Kūkai built his sacred core as a place to stand inside something near, to be surrounded by the truth, immersed in it, held within its design like a single figure within a great painting. Everything was placed with meaning. Nothing was decoration. Each hall, each image, each careful arrangement was a part of the whole, so that the entire sacred ground became a single great teaching written in timber and stone, legible to anyone with the eyes to read it, and offering its quiet lesson to all who walk through it, that you are not outside the sacred, looking in. You are within it. You have always been within it. You need only grow still enough to know it. This is the idea I would like you to carry with you tonight, gently, as you rest, because it is a beautiful and a consoling one. In Kūkai's understanding, the sacred is not somewhere far off. It is not locked away beyond the sky, to be reached only after death, or only by the rare and the holy. It is here. It is woven through the wood of the trees and the stone of the mountain, through the breath moving in your own body, through the quiet of this very night. The whole world in this view is already shining, already at every moment, full of the very truth that seekers cross seas and climb mountains to find. We have only forgotten how to see it. And a place like this mountain exists above all to help us remember. So when you imagine Kūkai standing on that empty plateau, laying out his great design, understand what he was truly doing. He was not trying to build a wall between the ordinary world and the sacred one. He was trying to build a place where the wall, for a moment, falls away, where a person could walk in and look around and finally see what had been true all along, everywhere, the whole time, that the world is luminous, that it is whole, that nothing real is ever truly lost. He wanted to make that visible. He wanted to gather the whole shining structure of existence into one place, in wood and stone and color, so that ordinary people, walking through it, might feel for themselves the truth that he had crossed the sea and climbed the mountains to receive. Around that central tower, the rest of the sacred core slowly took shape. A great main hall, where the most important ceremonies would be held. Other pagodas and halls, each with its own role in the larger design, each placed where it belonged in the grand pattern, and among them, set apart and quietly cherished, a single pine tree, for here, the faithful say, was the very spot where the flying object from across the sea had come to rest, caught in the branches all those years ago. To this day, that pine is said to be unusual. Where the needles of an ordinary pine grow in clusters of 2, the needles of this one are sometimes found in clusters of 3, matching, it is said, the 3 prongs of the sacred tool that once hung in its branches. And to this day, if you go there, you will see visitors walking slowly beneath it, their eyes lowered, searching the ground among the fallen needles. They are hoping to find one of those rare 3-needled clusters to carry home with them as a small token of good fortune and of faith. I find something very tender in that image, and I would like you to hold it for a moment. People of every age, from every walk of life, the old and the young, the devout and the merely curious, bending quietly beneath an ancient pine, looking for a small green sign. It is such a deeply human thing to wish for. A little proof, something you can hold in the palm of your hand, that the old stories are true, and that the sacred is real and near. The mountain has been giving people that quiet comfort for a very, very long time, and it gives it still. There's no grand ceremony to it, just a person and a pine and a moment of patient hope beneath the trees. And as the evening deepens over the sacred core, imagine the great halls and the tall pagoda settling into the dusk around that single quiet pine. The vermilion of the painted woodwork darkens to a deep, soft red in the failing light. The wide eaves of the rooftops, sweeping and graceful, hold the last of the day's glow along their edges. Lamps begin, here and there, to be lit, and over all of it falls the deep hush of a mountain evening, the same hush that has fallen here every evening for more than 1,000 years, since the very first halls rose upon this plateau. To stand here as night comes on is to feel the whole long history of the place gathered quietly around you, every evening that has ever fallen here, layered one upon another like the rings within the trunk of one of the great old trees. But the great sacred core, for all its beauty and all its meaning, is not the deepest heart of this place. The deepest heart lies elsewhere, further in, beyond the temple town, at the end of a long and shaded path. And it is toward that path that I now want to turn, slowly, because it is the place toward which tonight's whole journey has been quietly leading us all along. Let me tell you, first, how Kūkai's own life came to its close, though close, as you will see, is not quite the right word for it. He lived upon the mountain, and he taught, and he worked, for the rest of his years. He had built the home he had promised his master he would build. He had brought the teaching across the sea, and given it a place to take root, and to rise, high above the ordinary world. Disciples gathered around him. The work of the mountain went on. And as he grew old, he prepared for the end with the same calm and deliberate intention that he had brought to everything else in his long and remarkable life. According to the tradition, he knew the time of his passing in advance, and he foretold it to those around him. he gave his final instructions to his disciples, settling the future of the mountain and the teaching. He ceased, in his last days, to take food and water. And then, on a spring morning in a year that the records document well, the early spring of a year in the 9th century, when he was 62 years old, he settled into a final, deep meditation, composed and unafraid, exactly as he had said he would. Imagine the scene, gently. The mountain in early spring, the air still cold, the great cedars dark against a pale sky, the disciples gathered close in sorrow and in awe, knowing what was coming because their teacher had told them. And Kūkai himself, calm at the center of it all, settling into the stillness he had practiced his whole life long, without fear, without struggle, simply growing quiet, and quieter, and more still, the way the evening grows quiet, the way the forest grows still as night comes on. There was no terror in it, the tradition holds, and no grief in him, only a deep and peaceful composure, as of a man lying down to rest at the end of a long and well-lived day. He had done what he set out to do. He had crossed the sea and received the teaching, and carried it home, and built it a home of its own upon the mountain. His work was complete, and so he let himself grow still. But here's the thing that makes this mountain unlike any other place in the world. In the faith that grew up around Kūkai, he did not die. He entered instead into what the tradition calls eternal meditation, a state of profound and unbroken stillness, in which the faithful believe he remains to this very day. He did not leave the world behind. He did not depart for some far-off paradise. He withdrew, rather, into the deep silence of the mountain, into an inner chamber at the end of the long path. And there, the belief holds, he sits still, in endless and serene meditation, watching over the world and quietly, patiently working for the well-being and the peace of all who suffer within it. It is a gentle belief when you sit with it. Not a belief in someone gone, but in someone present, near, even now, just at the end of the path, keeping a long and loving watch. Over the centuries, this belief gave great comfort to countless people. To know that he was there still, that one could walk up the mountain and come close to him, that he had not abandoned the world but only grown very, very still within it. This was a deep consolation in hard times. People came from all across the land, walking for many days, simply to be near him, to feel, at the end of the cedar path, that they stood close to one who understood their sorrows and would carry them quietly in his endless meditation. And many who could not make the journey in life wished, as I told you, to be brought here in rest, to lie near him beneath the trees. The whole great gathering of stones along the path is, in a sense, an expression of this one tender belief, that here, at the heart of the mountain, there is someone worth drawing near to, someone who keeps watch, someone who does not leave. I want to be careful and honest here, the way I always try to be with you. Whether this is so is a matter of faith, not of history, and I offer it to you as the faithful have held it for 1,200 years, with deep respect for what it has meant and still means to so very many people. But I will tell you this much as plain and documented fact. The people of this country have believed it, and have acted upon that belief with a devotion that is almost beyond imagining. Because every single day, for more than 12 centuries, without missing a single morning, they have brought him meals, twice each day, every day, in an unbroken line of monks stretching back across the whole long history of this place, a warm meal is carefully prepared in a kitchen near the inner sanctuary. It is placed with great reverence into a special container, and it is carried with ceremony and with quiet devotion along the path to the chamber where Kūkai is believed to sit in his eternal meditation. And there it is offered to him, exactly as one would offer a meal to a living and beloved teacher. This has happened in the early morning, and again later in the day, every day, through wars and famines, through fires and floods, through centuries of upheaval and change in the world beyond the peaks, for more than 1,000 years. It is, perhaps, among the longest unbroken acts of devotion anywhere in the human world, and it is still happening this very morning, while you rest here in the quiet, every morning, for 1,200 years, without a single day missed. Think of that gently for a moment as you lie there in the dark. Somewhere right now, in the cold, still air before the dawn, high on a Japanese mountain, monks are preparing a meal for a man they believe has been in meditation for 1,200 years, and they are doing it with exactly the same care and exactly the same reverence that their predecessors brought to it 1,000 years ago, and the 1,000 mornings before that, and the 1,000 before that. There is a faithfulness in this that goes far beyond words, a constancy, a quiet, daily refusal, across more than 12 centuries, to let the thread be broken. Whatever one believes about the man at the end of the path, the devotion itself is utterly real, and it is one of the most extraordinary things that human beings have ever sustained. And the ritual itself is gentle and deliberate, every step of it unchanged across the long centuries. The meal is prepared with care, as if for an honored living guest. It is placed into a special container, and the container is carried out along the path toward the inner sanctuary. There is a small shrine along the way where, by old custom, the food is first offered a taste, a quiet, tender detail, the kind of thing one does for someone deeply loved, to be sure the meal is good before it is given. A small stone figure stands there, and the meal is presented to it first, in a gesture repeated every single day, for longer than anyone can remember. A final, careful check made out of love, that what is being carried to the heart of the mountain is worthy of the one who waits there. And then it continues on, across the bridge, to the place where it is offered. No crowds rush it, no noise attends it. It is simply done, quietly and faithfully, in the early light, by people who have given their lives to the keeping of this place. And then it is done again, the next morning, and the next, world without end. There is a beauty in that kind of faithfulness that has nothing to do with grandeur. It is the beauty of the small thing done well, and done again, and never abandoned. The beauty of constancy itself. Think of all that this small daily kindness has quietly outlasted. Empires have risen and fallen in the world beyond the peaks. Cities have been built and built again. Whole ways of life have come and gone. And through all of it, every storm of history, every hard winter, every year of trouble, the meal has been carried up the path, in the quiet before dawn, without fail. There is something steadying in simply knowing that such constancy exists in the world. That somewhere, no matter what else is happening, this one gentle thing is still being done, exactly as it always has been. Let that knowledge steady you now, as you rest. Now let me bring you at last to the path itself. For this is where our journey has been heading. It begins at a bridge. To reach the inner sanctuary where Kūkai is said to wait, you must first cross a small bridge. The first of 3 you will pass on the way in, and from the moment you cross it, you have left the ordinary world behind and entered the most sacred ground upon the mountain. The old and gentle custom is to pause there at the bridge, to compose yourself, to set aside the thoughts of the day, and to bow once, quietly, before stepping across. For it is said, and this is a belief I find very moving, that here, at the threshold, Kūkai himself comes out to meet those who walk to him, and accompanies them along the rest of the way, an unseen companion at their side. Think of what that belief has meant, across the centuries, to the countless people who have stood at that first bridge, the weary pilgrim who has walked for days to reach this place, the grieving heart come to be near someone it has lost, the seeker full of questions, the simple traveller footsore and far from home, each of them pausing at the bridge, bowing, and stepping across into the belief that they did not walk the sacred path alone, that the one they had come so far to be near came out to meet them at the very edge of his ground, and walked the last 2 kilometers at their side, quietly, all the way to the heart of the mountain. Whatever one believes, there's a deep kindness in that idea, that you are met at the threshold, that you do not have to make the final approach alone, that someone comes out to walk you in. Hold that kindness with you now, as we cross. You too are not walking this path alone tonight. I am here beside you, and the whole long company of those who walked it before us is here in spirit, and the quiet of the place itself walks with us, gentle and close. And then the path opens before you, and you begin to walk beneath the cedars. I wish I could give you the full feeling of this walk, the way it feels to actually be there, because it is one of the most beautiful and most deeply peaceful places I know of anywhere in the world. Let me try to describe it to you, so that you can walk it in your mind. Imagine a path of old, worn stones, perhaps 2 kilometers long, from beginning to end, winding gently through a forest of cedar trees so ancient and so tall that their highest branches seem simply to vanish into the sky. Some of these great trees have stood here for many hundreds of years. They were already old when your great-grandparents' great-grandparents were children. Their trunks are vast, wider than a person could reach around. Their bark is deeply furrowed and soft with age. Their roots grip the dark earth like the patient hands of giants. And the light that reaches the path has been filtered green and soft and dim, falling in scattered, drifting shafts through the high canopy far above, so that walking there feels a little like walking along the floor of a deep and gentle sea. The air is cool and still, and it carries the clean scent of cedar and damp earth, and beneath that, something older, a smell you cannot quite name, the smell of deep time and deep quiet, of a place that has been left undisturbed for longer than you can easily imagine. As you walk, the path rises and falls in the gentlest of ways, never steep, winding slowly between the great trunks. Here and there it is crossed by the roots of the old cedars, smoothed by the passing of countless feet over countless years. In places the stones underfoot are worn into soft hollows, shaped by all the pilgrims who have walked this exact way before you, in every century, in every season, each of them coming as you are coming now, toward the heart of the mountain. You are walking, quite literally, in their footsteps, joining a procession of the quiet and the seeking that stretches back across more than 1,000 years. And though you walk it tonight alone, in your mind, you're not truly alone on this path. You're simply the latest of a vast and gentle company, all of whom came this way looking for a little peace, and found it here, beneath these trees. Now and then, through a gap in the canopy far above, a little of the evening sky shows through, deep blue deepening toward night, perhaps a first faint star, but mostly there is only the green and shadowed world of the forest floor, the great trunks rising on every side, and the path leading quietly on. There are small stories folded into this path, gentle old tales told here for centuries, and I would like to share one with you as we walk, the way one might point out a small thing along the way. There is a clear stream that runs near the inner part of the path, fed by the high peaks above, and about that stream the people of the mountain tell a tender little tale. Long ago, the story goes, Kūkai came upon someone by the water, about to make a meal of some small fish he had caught, and Kūkai, moved by a quiet tenderness toward the little creatures, asked for them, and gently returned them to the stream. And there, the story says, they slipped from his hands and swam away, alive and well, as though they had never been caught at all. It is the kind of small, kind story that gathers around a beloved figure, not grand, not dramatic, just a quiet moment of gentleness by a mountain stream, remembered and passed down for more than 1,000 years. And out of respect for it, it is said, the people of the mountain have never since taken fish from that little stream. I find something lovely in that a single, small act of kindness so long ago should still be quietly honored today, in the way the people here treat one gentle stretch of running water. And along the whole length of this path, beneath the great trees, on either side, stand the stones. For more than 1,000 years, the people of this country have wished to rest near Kūkai, to be laid after their own lives had run their course, as close as possible to the man they believed was still living, still meditating at the end of the path. To be near him, even in rest, was to be near his protection and his peace. And so, over the long centuries, on either side of the long walk among the cedars, there have gathered a vast and silent multitude of stone memorials and stone lanterns. Some of them are grand and imposing, the tombs of great lords and famous warriors of ages long past, who in life had commanded armies and held provinces, and who in the end wished only to lie here, in the quiet, beneath the trees. Many more of the stones are small and simple, and worn almost smooth by the passing of time, the modest memorials of ordinary people, whose names have long since softened away into the moss, but who wished, as the great lords wished, to rest in this peaceful place. They number, it is said, in the hundreds of thousands, a vast, silent, mossy congregation gathered beneath the cedars, all of them turned, in a sense, toward the same distant point at the far end of the path. And what moves me most about them, I think, is how they gather every kind of person together into a single quiet company. Here, beneath the same trees, in the same soft moss, lie the great and the humble side by side. The mighty lord who once commanded thousands rests a few steps from the simple memorial of a person whose name no one now remembers. The famous and the forgotten, the powerful and the powerless, the warrior and the farmer and the wandering pilgrim, all of them gathered here together, equal at last in the deep calm beneath the cedars. All of them having wished for nothing grander, in the end, than to rest near the quiet of this place. There's a gentleness in that leveling, a kind of peace. Whatever a person was in life, the mountain receives them all the same way and holds them all with the same patient, untroubled care. Some of the stones lean now, settled by centuries of slow earth and weather. Some are wrapped so thickly in green moss that their carved faces have nearly vanished. The names and prayers upon them softened almost back into the stone. Small offerings rest here and there among them, a little cup, a worn statue wearing a faded red cloth placed there long ago by some loving hand, a scatter of coins green with age. Everything is quiet. Everything is soft. Everything has been left to settle, gently, into the long embrace of the forest. Now, you might imagine that a place so full of memorials, so thick with the markers of those who have gone before, would feel heavy, or mournful, or sad. But I want to tell you, very clearly and very gently, that it does not. This matters, and I want you to take it in, because it is the true heart of the feeling of this place. The long path through the cedars is one of the most peaceful places it is possible to imagine. The deep moss softens every edge and silences every footstep. The great trees hold a quiet so profound and so alive that it feels almost like a presence walking beside you. And the old stones, worn, gentle, settled into the earth, do not feel at all like a place of endings or of grief. They feel instead like a place of waiting, of patient, untroubled, peaceful rest, of countless lives gathered together in the calm beneath the cedars, sheltered and unhurried, watched over and at peace. To walk there is not to feel afraid, and it is not to feel sorrow. It is, more than anything, to feel held. To feel that you have entered a place where rest is not only permitted but cherished. A place that has been holding the rest of others, tenderly, for 1,000 years. And that can hold yours too. As you go deeper along the path, the trees grow taller still, and the silence grows deeper with them. The sounds of the world have entirely gone now. No engines, no voices, none of the constant low hum of human business that fills almost every other place. There is only the soft fall of your own footsteps on the worn and rounded stones, the occasional musical drip of water falling from a high branch to the moss below, the faint, slow movement of cool air through the great green canopy far overhead. Stone lanterns stand here and there among the cedars, some of them very old, their forms softened by centuries of weather, and the path leads you on, gently, always gently, never steeply, toward the second bridge, and then onward toward the third, each crossing drawing you a little nearer to the heart of the mountain, a little nearer to the chamber where, the faithful say, a man has been sitting in perfect and serene stillness since before almost anything else in the world that you know today had even begun to be. Notice how, with each step deeper, something in you quietens to match the deepening of the forest. The chatter of the day's thoughts grows fainter, the way the sounds of the valley grew faint when you first climbed the mountain. The path has a way of doing this to people. It is long enough and quiet enough and beautiful enough that the mind gradually lets go of what it was carrying and simply walks, present, unhurried, at peace. By the time the pilgrims of old reached the inner sanctuary, many of them found that the long walk beneath the cedars had already done its quiet work, that they arrived emptied of their hurry and their worry, ready at last for the stillness at the heart of the mountain. Let the path do that same gentle work in you now, as you rest. There is nowhere to be but here. There is nothing to do but walk and breathe and grow slowly, deeply calm. That is where I will leave you for tonight's second part. Deep upon the cedar path, the great ancient trees rising all around you into the dark, the hundreds of thousands of soft mossy stones, keeping their long and peaceful vigil on either side, the air cool and clean and sweet with the scent of old cedar. The world is very far away now, beyond the peaks, beyond the ring of mountains, out of sight and almost out of memory. There's only the path beneath your feet, and the deep green silence, and the soft light failing slowly into dusk among the ancient trees. Rest here. Breathe slowly. In the final part, we will walk the very last of the path together, across the last bridge, into the deepest and most sacred quiet of all. And there, in that profound stillness, we will let the whole of the day go, gently, completely, and sink down at last into sleep. So let us walk the last of the path together now, you and I, slowly, with nowhere else in the world to be. The cedars rise all around us, taller than any tower, their highest branches lost in the soft gathering dark. The stones rest among them on either side, deep and soft with moss, keeping their long and peaceful watch as they have kept it for 1,000 years. Our footsteps fall very quietly on the worn stones of the path. There is no hurry now. There is nothing left to do tonight but walk and breathe, and let the great stillness of this place come slowly into you and settle there. The evening has deepened since we began. The light among the trees has gone from green to grey to a soft and gentle blue, and the first faint stars have appeared in the gaps of the high canopy far above. The air has cooled, and it carries now the deep, clean scent of the night forest, cedar and moss and cold, clear water, and underneath it all the old, still smell of the sacred ground. The birds have grown quiet. The day's small sounds have faded one by one into the great evening hush, and the path runs gently on ahead of us, dim and soft and beautiful, leading us deeper into the quiet, toward the heart of the mountain, toward rest. Let yourself walk slowly. Let each quiet footstep carry a little more of the day away. There's no need to reach the end quickly. The walking itself is the rest. Feel the cool air on your face, the soft worn stones beneath your feet, the great calm presence of the trees on every side. With every step, the world grows quieter, and you grow quieter along with it, until walking and breathing and the deep stillness of the forest have become a single, gentle, unhurried thing. Ahead, through the trees, the last bridge waits for us. It is a small bridge, plain and old and worn smooth, crossing a clear stream that runs down gently from the high peaks above. This is the final threshold, the last step before the most sacred ground of all. The old custom, as I told you, is to pause here, to gather yourself, to bow once toward what lies beyond. And so let us pause here together, on the near side of the quiet stream. Listen to the water moving softly over the smooth stones beneath it, a sound that has not changed in 1,000 years. Feel the cool, clean air rising up from the running water. There is no need at all to cross quickly. Let us simply stand here a moment at the very edge of the deepest quiet, and let the last of the day's weight slip gently from your shoulders and drift away downstream. Carried off on the cool water, gone. And there's a small, quiet wonder built into this very bridge, hidden in plain sight beneath your feet. The bridge is made of flat stone planks laid side by side, and if you were to count them, you would find 36. But the bridge is counted by old tradition, not as 36, but as 37. The 36 planks, and then the whole bridge itself counted as one more. And that number, 37, is not chosen by chance. It echoes a sacred arrangement at the heart of Kūkai's teaching, a way of picturing the whole of the enlightened cosmos, gathered and ordered into a single design, so that the bridge itself, this plain old span of worn stone, is quietly a small image of that same great cosmos that Kūkai built into his tall tower long ago. Even here, at the very threshold of the heart of the mountain, nothing is merely ordinary. The bridge you are crossing is itself a small map of the universe, and carved into the underside of each of those 36 planks, unseen by anyone who crosses, there is said to be a sacred symbol, a hidden blessing, facing down toward the water, placed there not to be looked at, but simply to be, quietly, for its own sake. Cross gently then, knowing that even the stones beneath your feet were laid with meaning and with care. Now, gently, when you are ready, let us step across. One step, and the world behind us grows quiet. On the far side, the air itself seems to change. It grows even stiller, even softer, even deeper. The trees here are the oldest of them all, vast ancient cedars that have stood their patient watch over this innermost ground for longer than anyone can truly say, longer than the records reach. And among them, set along the way, the lanterns glow with a low, warm, steady light. There are many of them, more than you could ever count, their soft flames burning quietly and steadily in the deepening dusk, each one a small point of gentle warmth in the great cool dark of the forest. Walk slowly here with me, in your mind. Let each soft step bring you a little deeper into the quiet. The lantern light falls warm and gold across the worn stones of the path, and across the moss, and across the great roots of the ancient trees. The shadows between the lights are deep and soft, not frightening, the gentle, sheltering darkness of a forest at peace. The cool air holds the clean scent of cedar, and the faint sweetness of incense drifting from somewhere ahead, and beneath it all the deep, still smell of the old, old earth. With every step, the world you came from grows fainter, and the stillness grows deeper, and your own breathing grows slower and easier until you are moving as quietly and as calmly as the mist itself among the trees. And it is said that among all these countless lights, there are some that have never once gone out, flames kept burning continuously for many centuries, tended faithfully through all that long time, fed and watched and protected so carefully that they have never, in all those years, been allowed to fail. Think of that, softly, as you rest. A small living flame, kept alight by patient human hands across hundreds upon hundreds of years of nights, through storms, through winters, through all the long darkness of all those centuries, and still burning, gently and steadily, right now, in the quiet dark, as you lie here and listen. We are very near the heart of the mountain now. Ahead, beyond the glowing lanterns, beyond the oldest of the ancient trees, lies the innermost chamber, the still and sacred place where Kūkai is believed to sit, even now, even tonight, in his deep and endless meditation. We do not need to go all the way in. We do not need to disturb it. The deepest part is quiet and veiled, kept in a profound stillness that has not been broken in 1200 years, and it is not for us to break it. It is enough. It is more than enough. Simply to come this close. To stand here, among the soft, warm lights and the great ancient trees, in the gentle presence of so long and so faithful a silence, and to let ourselves grow still along with it, and think of what that stillness is. For 1200 years the faithful believe a single deep meditation has continued here, unbroken, through every war and famine and fire in the world beyond, through every change of age, through the rise and fall of everything else. This one quiet has simply continued, steady and serene, never disturbed. Whatever you believe about it, hold the image of it for a moment, because it is a profoundly restful thing to hold. A stillness so deep and so faithful that nothing in 12 centuries has been able to break it. That is the stillness you are coming near to now. That is the silence into which you are being gently invited to rest. Not a thin or fragile quiet that the smallest sound could shatter, but a vast and ancient and unshakable calm. Deep as the roots of the mountain, old as the oldest of the trees. Let yourself lean into it. It will hold. It has held everything for so very long. It will easily, gently hold you. And here, in the presence of so much quiet time, something gentle happens to the weight you have been carrying. Think of how long this silence has lasted. 1200 years. The cedars above you were already old when your grandparents' grandparents were born. The stillness at the heart of the mountain was already ancient before almost anything you worried about today had even begun to exist. Your worries are real. They are yours. They matter. And they are very small, held against 1200 years of quiet. Both of these things are true at once. The mountain does not ask you to pretend your cares are nothing. It only holds them up against something so vast and so old that they settle, gently, into their true size. The thing that felt so large this afternoon is still real tonight. It is simply smaller than it felt here, beneath trees that have watched 1,000 years of troubles come and go, and soften and pass. There's a deep relief in that. Not the relief of being told your burdens do not matter, but the relief of finally seeing them at their real scale, small enough after all to set down for one night, here, in the oldest quiet in the world. So let us stand here then, you and I, in the soft golden glow of the lanterns, and let everything around us and within us grow quiet. Feel how very far away the world has become. The valley far below, the lowlands, the roads and the voices and the ceaseless ordinary daytime business of living, all of it is far beneath us now, beyond the ring of peaks, out of sight, out of hearing, out of mind. Up here in this high and hidden place there is only the mountain and the ancient cedars and the soft and steady light of the lanterns and the deep, unbroken quiet that has rested gently over this ground for more than 1,000 years. You have walked a long, long way to reach this stillness, through the whole of tonight's journey. Now at last, you can simply let it hold you. Everything that pulled at you today is down there, far below, beyond the peaks, and it cannot reach you here. The mountain stands between you and all of it. The great ring of quiet summits, the deep dark forest, the 2 kilometers of ancient cedars, the 3 small bridges, the long fall of mossy stones. Layer upon layer of silence lies between you and the noise of the world. You're deep inside it now, deeper than the day can follow, wrapped in more stillness than you could cross in a single night's walking. Nothing hurried can find you here, nothing loud. There's only the soft light and the great trees and the cool, clean air and the deep old calm, and you resting at the still center of it all, as safe and as far from harm as it is possible to be. Breathe, slowly, the cool, clean air of the high mountain. Feel it move gently in and gently out. There is nothing at all that you need to do now. There is nowhere you need to be, and nothing you need to solve, and no weight you need to carry. The long path is behind you. The lanterns glow softly all around, and the great cedars stand their patient watch, as they have always stood it, calm and unhurried and deeply, perfectly still. Look in your mind at the lanterns nearest to you. See the small flame within each one, steady and warm, burning quietly behind its old frame. Watch how the light moves, faintly, a gentle, living glow, never harsh, never bright, just a soft warmth held safe against the dark. There is something deeply restful in a flame like that. It asks nothing of you. It simply burns, steady and patient, the way it has burned through every night for hundreds of years, the way it will go on burning through this night while you sleep. Let your gaze rest on it, softly. Let the gentle light fill your eyes, and then let your eyes grow heavy, and let them close, and let the warmth of that small, steady flame stay with you in the dark behind them. And consider, as your eyes close, the long line of hands that have kept that flame alive. Every night for centuries, someone has tended it, has made sure it did not go out, has fed it and watched over it, and passed the care of it on to the one who came after. You will never know their names. Most of them are long gone now, resting somewhere themselves in the deep calm beneath the cedars. And yet the small thing they cared for so faithfully is still here, still burning, still warm, their patience made visible, glowing gently in the dark. 1,000 years of quiet devotion gathered into one small, steady light. There's a deep comfort in that, I think. To know that human beings can care for something so faithfully, for so long, simply because it is worth caring for. To know that gentleness, too, can be made to last. Let that comfort settle over you now, warm as the lantern light, as you let your eyes close and your breathing slow. All around, the ancient cedars rise into the night, so tall and so still that they seem less like trees than like great silent guardians, keeping their watch over this sacred ground and over you. They have stood here through more nights than anyone could count. They have sheltered countless travelers who came this far up the path seeking rest, and they shelter you now, just the same. There is no storm up here tonight, no wind to trouble them, only the deep, soft calm of the high mountain and the great trees standing easy in it, and the gentle glow of the lanterns at their feet, and the long, slow breathing of the forest all around. Let your thoughts begin to soften now, and to slow, like mist settling among the trees. And as they soften, think, if you wish, of all that this quiet has gently outlasted. The old worn stones along the path have watched the long centuries pass, generation after generation walking up beneath these same trees, carrying their hopes and their sorrows, growing old in their turn, and being laid at last to rest in the calm beneath the cedars, while the mountain held its silence steadily through all of it. So very many seasons, so many quiet mornings, mist rising from the valley, so many small lights, kept patiently burning through so many long nights, and through every bit of it, across all those years, the deep stillness at the heart of the mountain has never once broken, never wavered, never failed. It is the very same stillness that surrounds you now, this very night. You are resting tonight inside one of the oldest and deepest silences in all the world. Let that silence come a little closer. Let it fill the spaces between your thoughts, the way the cool mountain air fills the spaces between the trees. There is nothing in it to fear. It is not an empty silence, not a lonely one. It's a full silence, a silence that has held 1,000 years of prayer and rest and patient devotion, a silence that has been kept and tended as carefully as the flames in the lanterns. It is a kind silence, a safe one, the kind of deep, soft quiet that a child knows in the moment just before sleep, when the house has grown still and the whole world seems to be holding its breath, gently, so that you can rest. Let it hold you that way now. Let it gather around you, soft and deep and kind on every side. Feel how your breathing has slowed here on the mountain to match the slow breathing of the forest itself. In and out, slow and deep and easy. There is nowhere to go. There is nothing to reach. The whole long journey of tonight is behind you now, and you have arrived at last at the place of rest. And you may simply stay here, in the quiet, for as long as you like, with nothing asked of you at all. And as you breathe, let the deep calm of the mountain move slowly through you, from the crown of your head all the way down. Let it touch your brow and smooth it. Let it ease the small tightness around your eyes, and let your eyes grow soft and heavy in the dark. Let it loosen your jaw and your throat and the long set of your shoulders, which have carried so much today. Let them drop and soften and rest. Feel the calm move down through your arms, all the way to your open hands, until they lie still and warm and easy. Feel it move down through your chest, slowing your heart to the gentle, unhurried rhythm of the forest. Down through your back, easing every place that has held tension through the day. Down through your legs, all the way to your feet, until your whole body lies heavy and warm and wholly at rest, sunk deep into the soft quiet of the mountain, with nothing left in it that needs to be held. There is a kind of rest that is deeper than simply lying still. It is the rest of truly letting go, of setting down not only the body's weight but the mind's, of releasing your grip on the day, and the worry and the endless turning of thought, and trusting the world to hold itself together for a while without you. That is the rest the mountain offers tonight. The deep, complete, unguarded rest of someone who knows they are safe, and held, and watched over. Who knows that the light will be tended and the silence kept, and that they may therefore let go entirely, and sink and sleep. Let yourself have that rest now. You have earned it. The mountain is glad to give it. There is nothing more for you to do tonight but receive it. And every single morning, no matter what, the meal is carried up the path. Even now. Even tonight, while you lie here, letting go of the day, sinking slowly towards sleep, the thread holds, unbroken. Before the first light of dawn, in the cold and the dark, careful and reverent hands will prepare a warm meal and carry it gently along the cedar path, across the 3 bridges, all the way to the innermost chamber, exactly as careful hands have done every single morning for 1,200 years. The world beyond the peaks can be so uncertain. So much changes, and changes so quickly, out there. But here, upon the mountain, the constancy holds and holds and holds. The light is tended, the meal is carried, the silence is faithfully kept. Some few things in this changing world are simply not allowed to break, and there is a deep and steady comfort in that. A comfort you can lean your whole weight into now. and rest. While you sleep tonight, the mountain will keep its watch. The lanterns will burn on gently through all the dark hours, tended as they have always been tended. The great cedars will stand quiet under the stars. The stones along the path will rest in the moss, as they have rested for 1,000 years. And in the cold hour before your morning comes, far up the cedar path, the quiet procession will set out once more. The warm meal carried carefully through the dark toward the heart of the mountain. A small, faithful kindness, repeated yet again, exactly as it has been repeated every single morning for 1,200 years. You do not have to do anything for this to happen. You do not have to keep watch over it. It simply continues, on its own, faithfully, while you rest, the way so many good and steady things in this world continue quietly on, asking nothing of you, holding the world gently in place while you sleep. Let that be your last easy thought, if you like. The mountain is keeping watch. You may safely let go. Let your thoughts grow softer still. Let them drift now, freely, like the thin mist among the cedars, like the faint warm glow of a far-off lantern seen through the trees, like the slow quiet movement of the stream beneath the last bridge. There is no need to hold on to anything at all. You do not have to keep watch over your worries tonight. The mountain holds everything here. The great trees hold the deep quiet. The lanterns hold the gentle light. And the long, patient, faithful stillness holds you, softly, completely, exactly as it has held everyone who has ever come this far up the path, across 1,000 years, seeking nothing more than a little peace. Whatever you carried up the mountain with you tonight, the worries, the heaviness, the noise and the busyness of the day, all the things that followed you up the path, you can set every bit of it down here now, among the old soft stones, in the cool and gentle dark. You do not need to carry any of it a single step further. The mountain has held far heavier things than these, for far longer than you can imagine, and it has held them all with perfect, untroubled calm. Let it hold yours too, just for tonight. Let it take the whole weight from you, and let yourself, slowly, grow light. Set down the thing you have been turning over in your mind. Set down the task that is not finished, the word you wish you had said, the small ache you have been carrying. None of it needs you tonight. None of it will be lost by your letting go of it for these few hours. It will all still be there in the morning if it must be, but you will meet it then rested, and gentler, and stronger. For now, here in the deep quiet of the mountain, you are released from all of it. There is nothing to fix. There is nothing to guard. There is no one you must be. There is only you, here, safe in the dark, with the lanterns glowing softly, and the great trees keeping watch, and the long silence holding you close. Feel how the letting go loosens something in your body. Feel your shoulders soften and settle. Feel the small tightness behind your eyes ease, and your jaw unclench, and your hands lie open and still. Feel the whole length of you grow heavy and warm and loose, sinking gently down, the way the old stones have sunk slowly into the soft earth of the path, settling at last into deep and easy rest. There is nothing holding you up now, and nothing you must hold. You can simply let go and sink and rest. The lanterns glow softly, golden and warm. The ancient cedars stand still and tall, watching over you. The stream murmurs faintly somewhere behind us, beneath the last small bridge. The air is cool and clean and sweet with the scent of old, old wood. And the deep silence of the mountain settles down over everything, soft as falling snow, gentle as a warm hand smoothing a blanket over a sleeping child, drawing the whole quiet world down and down into rest. You are safe here. You are held here. The light will be faithfully tended all through the night, as it has been tended for 1,000 years and more. The silence will keep its long, calm, untroubled watch over you while you sleep. And in the morning, far up the quiet cedar path, the meal will be carried gently to the heart of the mountain, exactly the way it always has been, and the way it always will be, a small and faithful kindness, repeated again and again and again across the long centuries, holding the whole world steady and gentle while you sleep. There is nothing you must protect tonight, nothing you must hold up, nothing you must keep watch over. The mountain keeps watch. The lanterns keep their light. The great trees keep their silent guard. The ancient stillness, deeper than any trouble could reach, holds you and the whole sleeping world in its calm. You may let go of all of it, every duty, every worry, every small unfinished thing, and simply rest, as completely and as deeply as a person can rest, here in the safest and quietest place there is. You have come all this long way. You have crossed the bridges and walked beneath the cedars and stood among the lanterns at the heart of the mountain. There is nothing left to do now but sleep, and the mountain is glad to let you. It has been waiting, patiently, all this long, quiet evening, simply to give you this rest. And so let the mountain hold you now, the way it has held so many, for so long. Let the cool air and the soft light and the deep, ancient quiet gather you in. Let your breathing go slow and slower, easy and unhurried in time with the long, slow breathing of the forest. Let every last bit of the day's weight slip away, down through the soft moss, down into the patient earth, gone. There is nothing left to carry. There's nowhere left to go. You have arrived at last, at the deepest and gentlest stillness there is. And here you may simply rest, held and safe and warm, for as long as sleep will have you. Let the lantern light grow dim and soft behind your closed eyes, a far, gentle warmth in the dark. Let the great cedars fade into shadow, their patient watch continuing without your needing to see it. Let the murmur of the stream grow faint and fainter, and the cool air settle over you like the lightest of blankets. There is no edge to this quiet now, no end to it, only the deep, soft dark of the mountain at night, stretching gently away on every side, holding you at its still and peaceful center. You are sinking, slowly, into it. You are letting go, a little more with every slow breath. And there is nothing in all the world that you need to do, but let yourself keep sinking down and down into the warm and welcoming dark. The mountain has done this for 1,000 years and more, gathered the weary and the seeking into its deep calm and given them rest. It asks nothing of you in return. It only holds you, the way it has held everyone who ever lay down within its silence, and lets the quiet do its gentle work. Feel that quiet now, all around you and within you, soft and deep and kind. Feel how it loosens the last of your grip on the day. Feel how it draws you down ever so gently towards sleep. There is no hurry. There is no effort. There is only the slow, easy drifting down, like a leaf settling at last to the still floor of the forest, like the mist sinking softly into the valley, like the night itself deepening, quietly, all around. The forest is dark and soft and kind around you. The lanterns burn low and warm. The great trees keep their watch. And the silence, the deep, old, faithful silence of the mountain, wraps around you now like the softest of blankets, drawing you down ever so gently into sleep. There is nothing more to do now, nothing more to think, nothing at all to hold. Only the soft, warm glow of the lanterns among the trees. Only the great ancient cedars standing their patient watch. Only the deep and kind and unbroken stillness of the mountain, gathering you gently in. The light is tended. The path is quiet. The mountain keeps its watch. Rest now. Let the silence carry you down, softly, gently, all the way down into sleep. Sleep well. And from this deep and peaceful place, high in the mountains of Japan, good night.